Hi, everyone. This is our critical analysis of family literacy resources. So the site that I looked at was readingpartners.org. And the Reading Partners organization, their mission statement is to help children become lifelong readers by empowering communities to provide individualized instruction with measurable results. And so what that translates into is that Reading Partners kind of references the 2022 National Assessment of Educational Progress results as kind of their touchstone. Those results said that only 32% of our nation's fourth graders can read proficiently on average. And so in order to address that lack of proficiency, Reading Partners has designed a curriculum that focuses on essential literacy skills, particularly for students in third grade and below. And then they train community volunteers and volunteers from AmeriCorps to work in Title I schools and provide individualized tutoring using this skills-based curriculum that they have created. Reading Partners also has a resource library that is available online for families and caregivers. In looking a little more closely at the Reading Partners family literacy resources, there are some things that they are really doing well. There does seem to be a focus on joy and this idea of reading being able to empower students, of helping students gain confidence in their reading, and to just feel better about themselves as students overall. There were a number of resources that were available in Spanish for families. And there was a more limited number in other languages, but there were some resources available in a multitude of different languages. One thing that I really liked as well is that some of the resources had like ideas for technology access, like certain sites where you could get like signed up for a month of free Wi-Fi or things like that, which I thought, given what we read in the article by Diaz Rico, and how we know poverty plays such a big role, especially for our students who get EL services, that was just kind of a nice thing to have available. And overall, there were just a lot of resources available kind of across the site, different types of resources. As far as what is missing, as I took a closer look at the activities and kind of what was available for families, I did notice that resources for students who were like birth through preschool, there were a lot of songs, a lot of games, right? A focus on rhyming. But then as students got older, things got a little bit more skill heavy. A lot of what was available sounded like what a teacher might use in a small group lesson, or like in a guided reading session, but it was meant for families to use with their students. And so, of course, I thought of Goldie Muhammad and all of her talk about joy. And I found this quote very helpful in kind of thinking about this. Often, joy is not centered in education as children get older. And we know there could be a correlation between that fact and lower levels of achievement as children grow older. And I definitely saw that idea of like not as much joy or not as much fun being in the resources as students got older. Also, in the Reading Partners site, I saw that reading was really mainly shown as valuable in a school context. So it was about how can families prepare their readers for school, rather than how is reading kind of used as a tool in the world. And so that, of course, made me think of multiliteracies. In chapter 3, Perez says, within the functional multiple literacies definition, literacy is a technology or a tool that is culturally determined and used for specific purposes. And again, the only purpose that Reading Partners was really using literacy for it was for school preparation. And finally, there were really no references to the benefits of biliteracy or to home languages within the Reading Partners site. And I think given the fact that there's a lot of kind of misinformation about biliteracy and what it does for students and families, it would be helpful to have that kind of information available for families.
So for my site that I looked at the Illinois Reading Council. I chose the Illinois Reading Council because it has been a program within my school that I've been at, and it's been interesting to kind of look at how it's functioned at my school level versus what the intent is across the whole state of Illinois. So the mission that I pulled from their website is the mission is to provide support and leadership to all who promote and teach lifelong literacy. So, what the Illinois Reading Council is, it's a nonprofit professional organization whose members promote reading and literacy for people of all ages. So, it's definitely meant more for teachers to get trained and have resources given to them to then push towards families and students. But in my research on this site, I did also find a lot of really cool things that they're doing with students as well. So the goal is to improve the quality of reading instruction at all levels, to provide a local and statewide network of teachers and administrators associated with literacy issues, to promote the activities of the local reading councils and provide a concentrated focus about literacy issues, to sponsor conferences and meetings to implement the purposes of the council. So that's one big thing I saw at my school was the teachers who were a part of Illinois Reading Council really trying to get families and students involved in this process. To stimulate and promote literacy research is also a big part. To disseminate knowledge helpful in the solution of problems related to reading. So, really looking at why students are not loving to read and why they are not being successful readers, and as well as recognize and honor outstanding educators, authors, journalists, and others for significant contributions to reading and language arts. So, actually, some other things more specific to just students, families, and teachers. For students, they promote the Illinois Reads program, which is a statewide event where there are book lists pushed out for students of all ages from birth up to high school. And they are really pushing to read this diverse set of texts. I just discovered through my research that at the Illinois State Fair, there are daily booths set up with the authors so students can bring their books in and get signed, and families can meet them. And I think it's really um, the goal is to have it be a very community based event. For families, there are family reading nights that are held at local levels, which is something that I was able to see in my school district too. And then for teachers, there was a plethora of award and grant opportunities, international projects, professional learning, literacy webinars. I linked all of these because the list just goes on and on and on. It was a lot of resources for teachers, which is fantastic. So, as far as my analysis, some things that they are doing well, a big one, just like Jocelyn, is bringing joy to parents, students, and teachers through a variety of methods, whether it's engaging professional development, reading books and book clubs together. It's really promoting the joy of reading and reading for fun, not just reading at school. It's also providing opportunities for children to engage with print. So I pulled this quote. I wrote it down in my notes while we were reading, and it really connected to what I was learning about for Illinois Reading Council. Unless children observe literate behaviors and have experiences with literate others around print, they cannot fully develop literacy. So if they see their peers reading, they see their teachers reading, they see their family members reading, they're more likely to develop those good habits. The book lists for a variety of ages and ability levels. They provide opportunities for students, families, and teachers to engage with text. and use those as mirrors and windows. There was a very diverse set of books for teachers, especially. There was one about translanguaging, which I was really amazed to see since that's what we're learning about right now. Um, so it really does provide a lot of opportunities to engage with a lot of different texts. Some things that I found were missing: students delivering truths through writing. There is definitely more of a focus on just reading. So, not having other aspects of literacy is something that I thought was missing. There also were not diverse texts at every grade level. I found that some of the middle grades, I teach fourth grade, so naturally I looked at third through fifth, and there really was not a lot in that text set. But birth to three, there was a ton. And then as students got older, there was a ton. So I did find that there were some gaps there. And then there also were not any text sets geared towards parents and guardians. There is a text set for adults, but I thought having something a little more specific to parents and how to, engage with text with their child could have been a perk. So I also pulled another quote from what we read the last few weeks. The literature on emergent literacy stresses the important role of print and text and of the presence of opportunities for the children to observe adults and older siblings reading and writing. So having these older text sets, I do think helps with this. But really seeing parents reading, I think, is really beneficial.
So, in looking at Reading Partners and the Illinois Reading Council kind of together, we noticed some trends or some similarities. Um, First of all, both organizations have resources for teachers, families, and students. But the priority is really on the classroom work. So, yes, there are things available for families there, but it's really in support of the work being done in the classroom, and it's not the main focus. There's a lot more available for teachers. Um, Both sites have more of a focus on reading over writing, or other types of literacy skills. Um, and then finally, there weren't really any resources geared specifically towards parents and guardians, or if there was very little available as far as what parents and guardians could read to kind of help themselves. They talked a lot about being an example, showing your joy for reading to help your students or your kids, but not kind of helping parents with that aspect of it. As far as differences between the two sites, the Illinois Reading Council had more of a focus on experiences in literacy, whereas Reading Partners was much more skill based, and a lot of the resources available were really just worksheets. And so, kind of a very different view of what literacy looks like from these two organizations. Reading Partners had translations in multiple languages available for a number of resources on their site, whereas Illinois Reading Council really seemed to just have English only as an option for those parent resources. And then another difference that we noted was that the Reading Partners organization really focuses on students from birth through third grade. So we're looking at younger elementary, whereas the Illinois Reading Council has resources available for students K through 12, or even birth through 12. So a much wider range.
So, based on what we researched and then analyzed, we came up with three recommendations. The first is to include suggestions for experiences that honor multiliteracies, such as writing a shopping list together, researching and following a new recipe, writing an email to a family member, author, politician. Really giving students an opportunity to see the value in literacy in their daily life, not just at school. Another recommendation is to include articles on the benefits of biliteracy for students as well as for parents to really see the importance of this, I think would be also important. And then lastly is to provide book lists and text sets for adults and guardians that they can read, but especially having multiple languages available. Like we've already said, many of these resources were English only, and that just was not the main focus of many of them. So many families would not be able to access these. And then lastly, we have our references.